I'd like to go back a little bit to this idea of compromise, and how, in the last 10 or 20 years, compromise has become a dirty word. But when it comes to the budget and when it comes to the word compromise, I'm a little bit nervous these days that compromise means everybody gets what they want versus compromise meaning everybody has to sacrifice a little bit. So I'm looking, for example, at this emergency supplemental that we're considering in the House and the Senate, where we need to provide aid to Ukraine, we need to provide aid to Israel, we need to provide disaster aid. Perhaps there's some Indo-Pacific regions that need some care and attention. That's a big package. The president's put forward $106 billion. House wants to separate things out and potentially pay for some of that stuff, but those offsets, are dubious, I think. How do we get something like this emergency supplemental across the line in a way that compromises between the two parties what they want, but doesn't also compromise our fiscal position? How do we get lawmakers to understand that compromise means everybody gets a little bit of what they want, but compromise also means everybody has to sacrifice a little bit in the name of fiscal responsibility? Yeah, Tom, you got any thoughts on that?
It's a great question. It's a phenomenal question. And, as you were speaking, and the notion about, first of all, and as you pointed out, we actually have two supplementals, as you know, and Concord about this, because you've got the $100 billion supplemental for Israel and Ukraine, and also I think there's some border security money in there for fentanyl. But then there's another $50 billion, $55 billion supplemental for emergencies, for the hurricanes and for flooding and whatever else. So we're really dealing with about $155, $160 billion.
Right, you're right.
And I think you're absolutely right. I mean, we just can't continue on this path. That's I think should be stipulated. The two other thoughts I have are, number one, for better or worse, and I think more for worse, there is no one really sitting at the table who's serious about deficit reduction. I think the Republicans talk about deficit reduction, but they're not willing to look at things in their own area, which they're willing to give up in order to reduce the deficit. And on the supplemental, as an example, they have an offset, which is cutting funding for the IRS, which actually adds to the deficit rather than reduces the deficit. So that's, unfortunately, there is not a great constituency in Congress in either party for deficit reduction. The only thing is there's an emergency, and I worry that I don't want this money to be slowed down, because Israel needs the help, Ukraine needs the help, and the longer this debate goes on, the more problematic it is.